Good morning, my creative friends. This is Dr. Minette Riordan, and this is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, where we gather to explore mixed media, painting, drawing, and mark making of all kinds with the intention of self discovery and greater self awareness. I am literally in my PJs, have had a couple of cups of coffee so far this morning, and we are over 100 episodes into Painting in Your PJs Live. So if you're new here, click that subscribe button so you get notified when I go live. I go live Monday to Thursday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. That's 6 a.m. Pacific and 9 a.m. over on the East Coast. And of course, you can watch anytime. You don't have to join me live. But I am such a big fan of using my creative practice, and my cat is trying to get in my lap, as a way to explore emotions and feelings and what's going on in the moment. And I was just telling my husband, and I wrote in the description of the video today, that I just woke up this morning just feeling sad. And I'm like, why am I feeling sad? I don't really have anything to feel sad about. Things could be going a little better. I could have slept a little better. And then I remembered that it was the full moon tomorrow. It's full at 1:30, I think, Eastern time, and around the time of the full moon I always get that inexplicable sort of emotional experience of sadness, a little bit of overwhelm. And so I know that, and what I want is to be able to paint out some of that emotion and experience onto some sort of substrate just to help me experience the emotions. It's not bad that I'm feeling sad. It's totally hormonal in the moment. Good morning, Tori. Good morning, Barbara. And in my studio sessions this last week, we looked at doing abstract backgrounds, but there's a way. Buenos dias, Julie. Good morning. There is, a lot to be said for abstract painting as a way to boost our mood, as a way to work through whatever it is that we might be feeling or experiencing. So I'm going to play with some abstract emotional landscapes this morning, and instead of working in my journal, I might also work in my journal. But I was just kind of looking around my studio for some inspiration. And I have these little scrappy bits of wood brought all the way from California with me. So these are from a dear friend who is a amazing woodworker, and she makes these gorgeous altars. Her company is called Zendo House. You can find her on Instagram. And I love her altars, and I benefited from getting a bunch of scraps of different sizes and shapes. Some of these have already been painted on a little bit. And I also love and have a big stash of these just flat board canvas that I love working on. Excuse me. And these are a nice size. So I spent a little time. You can do this in your art journal, but when you just sort of wake up and notice that maybe you're feeling a little off kilter and there's just an abundance of emotion running through your body, we can use our painting practice to sort of manage that and deal with that. So first I took just a plain old Sharpie and did some writing on these. And I want to dive right in and get some gesso down as well on the surface. And then I will share more about where we want to go. But for me, my personal painting practice, I think, has saved my life in so many different ways over the years. When the Me Too movement struck and brought up old memories of my own experiences, I was able to paint through a lot of the just outrage and grief at what I was experiencing. I have a client right now who's dealing with a lot of grief, and we've been able to really use painting as a way to explore grief. And I don't know what was painted on here before, something water soluble, so it's sort of peeking through my gesso, bleeding through, totally fine. So this is, again, an abstract emotional landscape. But as you know, if you've been watching me for a while, when I paint these abstract pieces, I love to start with my own handwriting. I want to get those thoughts in there, the get the feelings out, get the, past kind of that blank canvas feeling. Georgia, go away, sweetie. My cats just will not leave me alone right now. They're driving me absolutely bonkers. I've got a beautiful fingerprint here, so maybe I'm just gonna come in and maybe put some more fingerprints on here. They may or may not show later. We'll see. Not too worried about that, but a fun way to get some texture in there. But starting with our own handwriting on the page, covering that up with gesso, and then starting to build up from there. And what I'm feeling like this morning is that what I want is just to do a little bit of abstract mark making first with my Stabilo Marks All pencil. And I am working in the gesso while it's still wet. I don't have any need to dry that up. I'm going to get some water going. So because Georgia couldn't get in my lap, she's lying absolutely as close as she can, just off camera, almost on top of my supplies. And you notice that I'm working on two different panels. And I mentioned this a little bit yesterday as well about working on multiple pieces at the same time, or that was in my studio session. And if you don't know what a studio session is, it's similar to what I do here on YouTube, and I'm going to dip this in water, but it is live on Zoom, so I can be with you all face to face and do a more specific demo of some kind. This week we did do the abstract backgrounds for art journal pages, and I love working on multiple pieces at the same time. So these are going to end up having some of the same color palette, right? We'll see where we get to. I'm going to clean the gesso off the tip of that pencil. Good morning, Marion. And so I'm just kind of going to have some fun playing on these two panels, almost as if they were side by side pages in my journal. So like I said, you could absolutely do this in an art journal or just on sheets of mixed media paper. I discovered, thanks to my friend Rebecca from Zendo House, that I love painting on wood. There's something about the surface, and I have a ton of it around the studio. So I'm motivated to start sort of using some of that up. And I want to kind of seal that Stabilo Marxall in there a little bit. So I'm actually going to come in, instead of doing that with water, I'm going to use a little bit of matte medium. And I'm going to look for an old grungy brush that's kind of maybe on its last legs so that I don't gum it up with my matte medium. And I'm just going to come in and paint over those lines. Because the gesso is wet, it's going to gray it out a little bit. This brush is kind of rough, so I'm going to get some interesting texture. And I may make marks multiple times on this page. But the idea here is I just want to move some energy, move some of that full moon emotion, that little bit of just some underlying sadness that I don't know why it's there. I don't even need to know, like, there doesn't need to be a reason to experience an emotion or a feeling. All we need to know is what it is that we're feeling. Are we feeling sad? Are we feeling angry? Are we feeling bubbly and vibrant and enthusiastic? Are we feeling a sense of foreboding joy, waiting for the other shoe to drop? My friend Andrea and I have our second annual Beyond the Page virtual retreat coming up soon. And it's one of the things we're going to be exploring is how to work with our feelings and emotions on the page. Good morning, Yvonne. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I've got some grungy, messy paint. I'm going to hit this with my dryer, and then I'm going to keep playing for a little bit with some mark making before I start to add more paint. I felt called to come in and do some scribbling with some oil pastels this morning, so that's where I'm going to go next. Georgia does not like the dryer. She's looking at me like, what is the matter with you? Don't point that thing at me. That matte medium is still a little tacky on there and takes forever to dry, and I'm not feeling super patient. So I'm just going to take this other bit of canvas here and just blot some of that off a little bit. And I love painting on wood, but also this flatboard canvas is a favorite. I love the sturdiness of it. Plus, you can get these in all different sizes at Michael's or Dick Blick in, big stacks of them for really inexpensive. So they're great for exploring and experimenting. So if I were to come in now and ask myself, what is a color that feels like it would express how I'm feeling, the first color that came up was some red. So I'm going to come in and I'm just continuing to follow some marks that are already on the page, getting some color and scribbles down. Sometimes it's like I just need to put some color down. I don't know why, but there's something about the physicality of really scrubbing color onto a page that can feel very cathartic and healing. And how about some of this lavender? And so maybe I'm going to give myself some permission to just get really messy, and you can hear it making those marks on the wood. And again, just moving some of that energy that we're feeling, planting that on the page. It's a great way to experience the emotions, but also to begin to just transform them and really shift how we're feeling, lift our spirits. And I love working across two pieces like this. They're going to end up being separate, but they're going to feel familiar, right? They're going to feel familiar. At this point, I'm not worried about color. I'm not worried about anything. I am in the just very childlike, what feels good and playful. And it's just continuing to just cover these up, and they're looking kind of crazy. And that craziness is making me feel pretty happy. And then I'm like, okay, I want some bright colors to start to peek their way through. So maybe I'm going to come in. And oil pastels are such, for me, a childlike, joyful tool for sketching and playing with. I often will, as part of my own morning pages routine, incorporate scribbling just like this in my journal, just moving that color around to see what happens. So if you don't have oil pastels in your arsenal, they're a really fun tool to experiment and play with. You don't need fancy, expensive ones. These are just inexpensive Pentel oil pastels that you can get anywhere. All right. I don't know why these just feel like so much fun, and I don't want to stop playing with them. So I'm just paying attention to that feeling and just being okay with whatever my own experience is. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the where is this going? What am I going to do here? And as opposed to just being in the that really experience of what am I feeling right now? Like last night, it's like yesterday I had a frustrating conversation with someone that was referred to me who just wanted to pick my brain for free. And as a longtime business owner, that just sort of annoys me and doesn't feel honoring of my time. And so I was feeling a little frustrated about that. So I sat on the couch and colored one of Connor's mandala sacred circle designs. And it was just that instant calm, right? So apparently this morning I'm feeling a little stirred up. So that, feeling is just coming out on the canvas here. So this one is actually, I think, designed for fabric. Like it has a different texture. It's really creamy. So I'm attentive to my supplies and what they're doing on the page, but I'm not worried about anything else. So I have this big, juicy, happy mess, which is making me just feel a little bit gleeful in the moment when I look at this joyful messiness. But from here, where I would go next is I would come in either with paint or right back over it with some gesso. And I'm feeling like I want to just let go of all of that mess. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to come in with a brayer, and I'll still be able to see some of that color just peeking through. And what I love about these layered processes like this is it creates this rich palimpsest, this depth of story. No one else needs to know this story, but I know that that story is there. I'm going to clean my brayer off on this other canvas, so I'll start just building up some paint on that one as well. And I did some of these techniques on the studio session the other day as well, and have kind of a standard process that I follow a lot of times. If you're interested in the studio sessions, they're totally free. They're an hour-long calls on Zoom. They are not recorded. They're all about just connecting live with people. And the link is in the description to subscribe to my newsletter to make sure that you are getting added to the reminder list for those studio sessions. I love doing painting in your PJs. It makes me happy. It's a great start to my morning, but I realized I was missing seeing people's faces. And so I've added one studio session, maybe sometimes two, a month just to be able to connect live with people. So lots going on in the studio. My first retreat is coming up in 2 weeks. I am so beyond excited. Andrea and I in early June have our online retreat Beyond the Page, and we have an in-person retreat in San Jose in Andrea's studio at the end of October. So lots of fun ways to connect. Okay, again, just scribbling through. This is kind of like those when we were kids and we used to color with crayon and then you color over it with black and you scratch through it. This is kind of how that feels, very fun and childlike. And what I love is I can see some of those colors sort of peeking through. And we just have to let our process take us where it takes us, right? Like there's no place to be here, no place to go. I'm going to get these super dry. And I grabbed a small gel plate this morning. I've been just dying to have some gel plate fun. And clearly, maybe some of my sadness is I haven't been painting enough. I have a canvas I've started that, when I'm away from my studio for a long time, there's that longing to get back to it. But I want to show how I would use a gel plate directly onto the surface of something small like this, or even directly onto an art journal page. If you're not familiar with gel printing, this is not something you need to add to your list right now. It is very, very addictive once you do, but it was just something that I just roamed around my studio this morning and thought about what would feel fun and would lift my spirits this morning. All right. And I also grabbed from my stash just a bunch of handmade stamps. These are all just made out of fun foam and have a lot of different patterns. These are great for using on the gel print. It felt important to have some letters, so I have some abstract letters here this morning. And then that was the cutouts of the letters as well. It is so satisfying, and I can fill so many pages all at once with my gel print. It is very, very satisfying. All right. So now it's time to start bringing in some color. And again, with this, idea of an abstract emotional landscape, the idea is to infuse the piece with the colors that express how I'm feeling. And again, I'm being very drawn to red today. I love the color red. It's one of my favorite colors to wear. It's a very vibrant color. That one's metallic. I don't think I want the metallic. And if you're new to gel printing, like one of the lessons I had to learn was like that I was totally using too much paint and that the secret was in really thin layers of paint. And it's tricky. I'm still practicing in Colorado with how dry it is here, but you can see I still had some white on my brayer from that gesso. So now we've got a nice kind of bright, happy pink. And we're just going to go with that happy pink. And let's see, I think maybe we'll start with some of these letters. Just going to press that down really well. I probably got some of that lotus flower on there also. And then I think I'm going to come back in maybe with a little more of that red right over the top of that. So gel prints are really amazing. One of the techniques that I would love to get better at is using them for image transfer. I see people doing just magic things with them. And I got something stuck in the middle of there. Just cleaning off my brayer, just right on this scrap paper here. And I'm going to come in with one of my canvases. And we're just going to see what happens. Everything is an experiment. And it's amazing how my mood shifts and my perspective changes when I allow myself to connect to curiosity and play. Two of my favorite values. And I've never gel printed on wood before. So I got some color, but I didn't necessarily get, some of those letters on there. So we're just going to try again and see what happens. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. So I'm going to try again. That's way too much red paint. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on there, but then I'm also probably going to take some back off, come back over to our scrap canvas. I'm going to have red everywhere this morning. Maybe pull a little more of that off. And I'm curious to see if the gel printing will even work on the wood. Like I said, I've done, I mostly do it on paper. So let's try maybe a bolder pattern here. And if it doesn't work, then, it was an experiment that I got to try and have fun exploring. And we'll take our other piece of wood. And again, I'm just about being in the experience of the moment. Not overthinking anything. It doesn't love the wood, so I've got a little bit of that stripy texture on there, but not a ton, which is super, super interesting. So I'm actually going to grab some scrap paper here and just clean off my gel print, and I'm going to move on. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, and I have a lot of paint and texture on that surface. So we're just going to move on. I do love gel printing directly onto a journal page. It's a great, fast way. That's a great idea, Barbara. Maybe I'll try that, give that one more try. But I did end up with some really cool patterns And what I can see here is that hand-drawn spiral from this design had enough texture that it left an imprint on the gel plate. So again, just magic to be in that place of experimentation and play. So let's try one more time. Let's get a different color and try Barbara's suggestion. So I'm drawn, the purple and lavender don't really mix, but it's the colors that I feel kind of drawn to today. So let's come in maybe with a little bit of lavender. It's going to mix with some of that red, and we're going to get some fun kind of grungy looks going on. Grungy is must be what I'm feeling, because what I'm creating is tending to be pretty messy and grungy. And it's always great to have a canvas or some paper or something to clean your brayer off on and just not waste any of that color at all. So let's come in with some of these circles. So we have that nice pattern on there. And then I can stamp this off on that page to just clean that up as well. A little bit of paint dried pretty fast on there. And I'm going to come in with just a little bit of white paint over the top of this. Usually when I gel print, I like take over a whole table and have all those things spread out everywhere. Cleaning off that brayer. We're going to pick this up and we're going to see what happens. And maybe we'll try half of it on one and half on the other and just see what happens. Let's get that other one under here as well. Get my fingerprints in there. Best laid plans. Still not getting those shapes in there. It's so interesting, right? Like, yes, I made all of those stencils, Barb. So I've got lots of pattern on my gel plate here, but it's not really showing up on the wood. So no harm, no foul. I got to have fun experimenting and trying, getting my hands all nice and painty, but I still have some nice mushy pattern and color here on my gel plate. And so I'm going to come in with one more layer of color over the top of this. This is part of what I love about the gel printing, is just being able to experiment and play and layer those colors. My favorite teal blue always lifts my spirits and makes me happy. So I'm actually going to grab my journal that I've been working in here, and I'm just going to clean up that gel print right here in my journal page. Which is going to help just pull up some of that color and clean off the page. There's no pattern on here, no pattern needed, right? It's just a way of cleaning off that gel print and getting color into my journal. So when I'm ready to come work in this journal, I start to just pull up some of that color. And I don't even worry too much about cleaning this color off gel plates, because I love when they get kind of dirty and grungy. But if you do want to clean them off, if you just take some white paint over the top of the whole thing, and I'm going to lay a piece of paper on here, and then I'm just going to let it sit for a minute, and it'll pull up a lot of those undercolors that are on the page. And then I'll get back to my little bits of canvas here. So I have this magazine image that I pulled out. This is a hand painted dress. It's so beautiful. But I'm loving these colors. And nope, I don't want to paint over that one. I thought I was going to, but I changed my mind. I'm looking for some more scrappy bits of paper. What do we have down here? All right, here's just a page from a magazine. Magazine pages, it's great to print over the text and the ink. And I'm going to set this aside for a minute and let this adhere really well, and you'll see it'll pull up all of the color off of that. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my canvases, and I definitely want some of this teal blue over here. Just get a little bit of that onto my brayer. Getting it everywhere. Apparently, my inner 3-year-old is just wanting some super messy play this morning because it seems to be the direction that I'm going. And I love creating my own stamps. It's so fun. I can spend hours cutting shapes and designs out of fun foam, and it's really easy to do. You just use sticky back fun foam. So these pieces are cut out of sticky back fun foam and adhered to just a big fat piece of foam. It's one of those great sit in front of the TV and make pattern kind of projects. Andrea and I have taught that in our retreats together over and over again. All right, we're starting to get some movement going. Definitely just noticing. Let's see, let's get this one going this way. Building up the paint and the layers. These hold a lot of paint, so it's always great to have extra paper around. Thank you, Barbara. I love my inner 3-year-old too, and she loves to get messy. Ask my mom. Excuse me. I have always loved to get messy. And I'm even loving how just cleaning off my brayers, creating this really fun piece that'll get used for something along the way. And then I'm really also drawn to this leafy pattern on the back here. So maybe I'm going to come in with some of these leaves as well. And I'm looking for, what did I do with the extra palette paper? You wouldn't think I would lose things in this little tiny space that I'm working in. And I have a huge studio, but trying to do everything under the camera is always an adventure in organization. And I'm thinking maybe some lime green. Those happy spring colors. This one may be a little too dried out. Let's see. Of course, when I want a palette knife, I don't have one. I have lots of them. Georgia, nope, nope. Trying to get into my lap. All right, I'm just going to get all the paint off of here. I don't usually use a brush on a stencil, but this already had all the paint on it, so we'll just give it a go. You notice the strokes are not smooth like they are with the brayer, or you can also use a makeup sponge to ink these up. Experiment and try to find what the things are that you like the most. And again, I'm just working right across both of these at the same time. Not quite enough paint, right? So just noticing. Your 2 pages unintentionally reflect contrasting approaches to creativity, grounded and imaginative. I love that. Beautiful. What a great recognition of how they're showing up a little bit differently. So I'm wondering if I just get a little bit of water on here and take this paper again. I want to get some of the paint off. I don't clean my stencils most of the time, but this one did tend to have just a lot of extra paint on it. And when these get too gunked up, they don't work as well. You lose a lot of the pattern that's in them. When that happens, I just throw them away and make new ones. So, not attached to holding on to things. I'm definitely someone who is not attached too much to things. Okay, let's just get some of this green down here. And now again, I'm starting to bring in more color like I would in just any abstract piece. It does not look like a landscape in the traditional sense. It's more that idea. It's an inner landscape of how it is that I'm feeling, which is a little crazy mixed up apparently, but I can feel the calm coming back. I can feel the bright colors coming back also. All of a sudden I'm feeling like, okay, I want some orange on here. This is a vermilion. Looks a little more red than orange, but let's try it. And my 3-year-old says we're going to finger paint. So we're just going to like let her out to play today. And this is what happens when I don't get enough time just playing in my studio. I get grumpy. I get out of sorts. So I think my creative practice, it is a lifeline and the thing that keeps me centered and grounded. Is getting messy. Who knew? All right. I'm going to come back with that stabilo. All of a sudden, it feels like we need to start to bring a little bit more contrast back in to our design. And then I'm going to go over them again with gesso over the whole thing and just see where we can get to. What kind of layers are we creating? There's, texture starting to pop up, but they're feeling a little busy and I'm wanting to maybe calm them down just a little bit. Okay, those black circles feel really fun. So I'm starting to feel like they're coming together, that something's starting to show up. I've lost some of that blue over here. And now that I have all that nice black on there, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not going to cover it all up with gesso. So, and I can see all the scratch marks showing through. Lots of nice texture on here. So I'm just going to sit for a minute. Sometimes we have to just pause and think about what's coming. So what I'm feeling is that there's something starting to bloom on this page. This one's feeling maybe like the full moon over some water action here. So again, the color families are the same, but they're starting to diverge in their theme, which is just fun, right? It's just fun. There's nothing, again, no destination here or direction. There's no place I'm trying to arrive to. I'm just staying in that space of curiosity. But I am feeling like I want some more white on these. So this is just some white acrylic. And what if we bring that white and get some moon action going? We're just going to let that white blend with whatever other colors are there on the page. And I think the thing that was bugging me was like this big bunch of green here. So I want to just maybe come in and start to break up that green with something else. but not too much. That feels better. Already starting to just calm it down. White is your friend, right? Or solid colors are your friend when you want to start to really just sort of quiet and soften things in your landscapes. And I'm noticing that the red is wanting to disappear and those blues and greens and oranges, those spring colors are wanting to emerge. So I'm feeling like, okay, I want to just move some of that color out a little bit. Start to maybe shift what those final colors are going to be. This is going to need some different blues here. Just letting things mix, letting that stabilo mix with the paint. Just following the flow, right? All I'm doing is just following the flow. Letting the painting speak to me, be the guide on the journey. All right, I have been so addicted to this gorgeous phthalo blue. Some reason it is a very calming, soothing, rich blue. And I'm kind of liking this idea of like where that stencil was just reminds me of the flow of a river. So maybe I'm going to bring some of that back. And now it kind of feels like maybe we've got some moon energy sort of settling. Right over the moon. And what I love about this is if I don't like it, ultimately it's just all going to get painted over anyway, right? Because there's nothing that feels precious, nothing I feel like I have to hold on to. Get some of that blue over here as well. And I'm using a pretty fat brush, so I'm not getting any fine detail here, right? So I'm just noticing that that brush is giving me big swatches of color. So I'm really loving what's happening over here on this one and wanting maybe some of that little bit of growth over on this one. This corner got a little dark, so I'm maybe wanting to brighten that up a little bit. So just noticing that process of how they're emerging. And I think, again, this one has more of a loose wildness to it. This one feels like a garden that's starting to bloom. And what did I do with that canvas here? I have this nice blue on my brush. Great way just to start to build up those layers always is to have that paint around. Let's see if we can just brighten some of this up, push some of those other colors back. Maybe have some of that moonlight reflected here in our water. Again, just playing, right? Just playing, not needing to know where I'm going. So this one feels like I'm not sure where it's going, what the story is that's unfolding. So I'm going to set this one aside for a minute and I'm going to focus my attention on this one. And then when I come back to that one, I'll have more information about, where I want the story maybe to go with that one. So I'm going to brighten up some of this sky a little bit. I kind of like this white space, feels like a little breathing room in here. And I think I'm wanting just a little more definition of some of these shapes on the page and probably some smaller brushes. So I can just come in with some white and start to maybe just round these up a little bit so they start to maybe look like some abstract blooms of some kind. And definitely wanting to give a little more definition to some of the leafy bits that are here, paint out maybe that little blob of orange that's there. So let's see if we can come in with a different shade of green. And we're going to add a little bit of that phthalo blue there so that it just matches the colors on the palette. If I come in with a completely different color, it can feel awkward sometimes, right? And like, okay, that color doesn't quite fit. And sometimes all we need to do is just mix other colors on our palette in, and then it just all of a sudden it feels like family. Just paint on there. We've got some nice bushy stuff happening over here. Let's just bring that out a little bit. I like that it's kind of offset. I've got a little breathing room here. I've got some nice quiet space happening over here as well. I even kind of like this nice dark blue down in the corner. Now I have all this extra green on my palette. So maybe this one is just needing some greenery here in the foreground. So just going back and forth, going back and forth. I like the limier green on there, so I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come right back over that top with my nice bright lime green. But I am going to get this same green in a couple of other places on my palette here so that that color story feels cohesive and that color isn't just in that one spot. I want the story to flow. The focus here definitely feels like it's on this big moon and the water flowing. I'm not sure now that these shapes really fit, so they might actually disappear in a minute. But I used up that green, which makes me happy. And I'm feeling like we need some yellow. Oops. I tend to use a lot of cheap brushes because I am hard on my brushes, and so don't let them sit in water because then the tops tend to come off. So just continuing to build up the layers, bring some light into this. And it's amazing how just, a creative session of play like this can completely shift my outlook on the day. Get that yellow maybe in just a couple of other places. I'm going to bring some of that yellow over here as well. So again, they ended up looking completely different, and yet I started the process exactly the same way. Get some of that yellow in our moon, which makes it almost feel a little bit more like a sun, so that might get, again, that white added to it. That little bit of, just that little bit of reflection in the water there. I can brighten up this screen too. Just building up those layers. I love this little tiny brush. It makes great little daubs to just build up some of those nice little leafy shapes. I think I'm just going to have this continue across the front of my foreground. I'm okay with some of that orange peeking through. I love the orange over here, but the orange down here somehow just felt way too heavy. I'm just going to build this color up. And so I'm getting a little bit of a full moon landscape kind of happening here. Interesting, definitely very abstract. Getting some rich colors built up, but really feeling like I want the energy of that moon to just kind of expand and unfold. Because that's the story of the day for me, is like just honoring, okay, this is what I'm feeling. There's nothing wrong here. Feelings are not bad. There should never be any judgment placed on your emotions and feelings. They're just experiences in the moment, right? Experiences in the moment. And the more that we give them room to pour onto the page, the more we acknowledge and honor them, the more we can transmute them. Okay, this is coming along. Happy circles. So I'm noticing that, I've got a lot of light here, and I'm wanting this moon to just have a little more shape. So I'm going to maybe bring some of those darks back to the edge of my moon down here where it's resting against the surface. Just get a little more of that water flowing. Just building out those colors. And these little abstract paintings make me so happy. And of course, because I'm doing my 100 days of artsy animals, I'm looking at this thinking, is there maybe a little animal that wants to be sitting here? Maybe a little coyote wants to be sitting here. And I'm definitely not liking the yellow on there. So I'm going to let that yellow dry for a minute. I love the little pops of orange on here. Maybe I'm going to add just a little more shadow down in our grasses here. Yep, I definitely can see a sweet little coyote sitting here looking up at the moon. All right, I'm going to hit this with a dryer on that yellow right there and go back in with some more white. And what I notice is I pick it up. Let's see if I can autofocus. You can really see the texture of all the places that I scratched through, which makes me so happy to see all the texture. And the nice thing about the wood is that, and the layers of the oil pastel create this interesting surface to really, where you can really see all the scratches stay through a lot more than they do on paper. Shift that focus. All right, let's get back in here with some white. Get a really nice, clean, dry brush, clean-ish. I don't think my white's very white anymore. It's pretty blue, but that's okay. So I want a little bit of that yellow peeking through, but I want it to be more moon-like than sun-like. And so you've seen here in this, last almost hour now, how much these have changed and transformed, how many layers of story and play and emotion are built into these underlayers. And if I had just tried to paint this landscape, I wouldn't have gotten the richness and the depth of the colors. It's in the building up of the layers that we really start to get things really bright and rich. Bring maybe a little bit of something blooming in here, just a little bit with that moonlight shining on them. I'm almost wanting to bring that orange back a little bit. So let's try our baby wipe. Nope, I think I'm wiping the orange away. So let's come back in with just one more tiny little spot of that orange. Just somehow needs that little bit of bright in there, but not too much. We want it to be part of our landscape. Maybe I'm going to come back over in here. I miss my California poppies. They had so much rain. It was definitely one of those super bloom years. I'm just going to bring a little more of that orange. So that one's feeling pretty good. Again, I think maybe it's going to get a little silhouette of a coyote sitting down here looking up at the moon, but it feels like it's a nice honoring of that full moon energy and the emotionality of what it is that I'm feeling and experiencing in the moment. So I'm quite pleased with that one. Again, I love the texture that the wood. So if you have a friend who's a wood worker, ask them for some scraps. This one doesn't need a lot. It feels almost complete. What it feels like it needs is just maybe a couple of little white highlights here and there on the tops of these blooms. We're going to let them stay pretty round. That was a little more white than I wanted. And maybe just some little bit of energy up here in the sky, because I just can't not make marks. Those are not quite working for me. So we're just going to rub those out. The sky up here isn't quite what I want yet. So again, I say this probably every day when I work with acrylics. We put paint on, we take paint off. We put paint on, we take paint off until we just get those layers the way that we want them. Just coming in with some little lines, making it even just a little bit more floral. Me too, Tori. I absolutely love it. And it's just, I think, giving ourselves permission to stay in the process until the story emerges, right? Until the whole process unfolds. And I'm so excited for the upcoming retreat because we're going to be doing this, but large scale. So, our theme this year for my Wild Creative Abandon retreat is your inner wisdom keeper. And we're going to follow a similar process, but the end result is going to be a much larger piece. And I can't wait to see what people create just following these simple steps. And again, I really love the texture of the wood. It adds to that overall effect. Just continuing to blend those together. Maybe a little just touch of white over here in our leafy bits, but I'm going to call that one done. I'm impressed that I got them both done. Like I had no idea where I was going or what I was doing. I just knew I had this feelings that wanted to get expressed. And as I painted, recognizing that my 3-year-old was really wanting to come out and play, but then the artist in me wanted something a little more finished. I love that they're the same color families, and yet the two paintings came out completely differently. So this one feels done. This one, I'm still not happy with these little orange bits over here. So I think they're going to get pushed to the background. But again, let's see if we can focus up close. You can see all the scratchy marks from those early scratches through the gesso on top of the oil pastel. So you get all those rich, rich layers. If I had just tried to paint these flowers, I wouldn't have gotten the depth. Plus, my words are planted, my marks are planted, right? So there's a lot that went into just creating these little tiny pieces. I also love this size because they come together quickly, right? And it's nice. I love working big, but sometimes I really love having these little small pieces to work on as well. All right, so what am I going to do over here? Let's just push these back a little more. I want that orange peeking through, but I think I just don't want it to be quite so dominant. Tighten that up a little bit. It's part of the background, but not the whole background. That feels a little bit better, a little bit more of that water peeking through. I love you almost can't distinguish the horizon line here. This one's for some reason wanting a little more of that black as well. Like it's feeling like maybe it just needs a little bit of drama. Just right along that horizon line. Maybe in the edge of our moon over here. Thank you, everyone. So, honoring our process is important to our thriving, right? It's important to our staying that in that grounded, calm space, being able to see what's next. And when we don't experience and allow for the flow of our emotions out of us, they stick for a long time, right? And then we can't figure out what's going on and why we're not feeling great. And it's usually because we're ignoring, avoiding, neglecting the opportunity to just be in the journey. That was what it needed, just that little bit of black there to just feel a little more like there's a horizon line and like that moon is either rising or sinking over the top of this body of water here. All right, so I'm going to call this one complete as well. Super pleased with these little sweeties and feeling like I want to paint a whole series of these. So I have a whole bunch of this canvas, so maybe next week I'll continue to work in this small format. So yeah, they came out beautiful. Like I said, this one still needs that little, he needs a little critter sitting right here looking up at that moon. So I gotta figure out what I want that to be and to bring it's like there's something the balance is off, so I could fix that by putting a critter in here for some perspective, and I could also just bring the foreground up a little more. So I'm going to play with this one a little bit more. This one feels definitely finished, but super, super fun. Thank you guys for joining me and really just witnessing my process and my play and my practice. These made me super happy. My spirits feel better. My inner 3-year-old is like, woohoo, can we do more? And I'm looking at my gel plate going, okay, how much more time do I have to sit here and even maybe play a little bit more? So, as always, thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Creating Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. I will be back next Monday at 7 a.m. Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. Hope you get out and enjoy some beautiful spring weather wherever it is that you may be. And please remember to click like on the video so it tells YouTube that this is a video worth sharing with others. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay as well. I love being here with all of you. Have a great day. Bye bye.